cash flow forecasting. Okay, cash flow forecasting. We already mentioned about uh, man, machine, and material management. Okay, those are the things we associate with direct costs. And from those things, basically, uh, at the end of the day, it will generate money. Okay, so money is the one that we associate with what we call cash flow. Okay, basic component of project costs, direct costs, or I simply say DC. Okay, direct costs and then indirect costs. Then we have what we call total cost, and this one is what we call profit. So what is direct cost? The cost associated with material, machinery and plant, okay, and then labor. The three main item which most of the time contribute about 90% of the construction cost. Very high. Okay, people pay us money in order for us to construct whatever building wanted by the client, and in order to construct that building, we need the material, we need the machine, and we need the man. Man in this situation is referred to construction workers, whereas the professional people, the management, the engineer, the project manager, even supervisor, people in the office, the clerk, etc., etc., basically goes into what we call indirect costs. Even salary of the people in the headquarters, some portion will be somehow charged to the project. So that's why contractor needs to have project. Otherwise, who is going to pay for the main office renting, main office utilities, etc., etc.? And not to mention all the thing associated with the site. Construction site, you need to pay all kind of bill, okay, and then for cleaning up, for monitoring, and for safety, etc., etc. Some big portion of the cost will go into what we call preliminaries item in the contract. So those preliminary item, including all these things, okay, they are not, contractor are not being told to have the site office, etc., etc. But in order to manage the project, you need to have meetings, etc., and where to conduct the meeting. Okay, so we need to have a proper place to conduct the meeting, to put the computer, everything, to have a place to rest, to have a welfare facilities, toilet facilities. All these things goes into this kind of cost, which is not much, maybe less than 10%. When you add those 90% and about 10% together, this will contribute total construction costs. Okay, total construction costs. Then this total construction cost, okay, we call it contractor liability. When contractor are being paid fully based on those costs, contractor basically is happy already because everything is being paid, except that it might there is no profit. If, for instance, contractor just being paid based on whatever cost, contractor basically already recover all the costs. So this is what we call in business, we call it break even. Break even mean you get the money based on whatever thing that you have spent, but still there is no profit. No profit is still sometimes okay. In business, sometimes not all the project, not the item, all the item are profitable. if in during COVID situation, for instance, if you do business, you just simply break even, that is considered as okay. But it cannot be prolonged for so long, because in business, uh, people need to generate profit, because from that profit, then you can grow the business. You will use certain profit to finance your capital. Okay, certain part of the business need to be set aside. Okay, for the expansion of the business, but the rest of the money basically you spend on paying all kind of bill. All right. Contract values, or during the tender, we will call it this a tender value. But once you sign the agreement, between the client and the contractor, then those tender things has been changed to become a contract value. So contract value is the sum or the amount that the client have to pay to the contractor. Whereas in terms of contractor, this is there is a construction cost that he need to cover, but then the rest is basically the profit. So profit is basically contract value minus construction cost, total construction cost, construction cost. So profit is basically the difference between contract value and construction cost. Contract value is the client payment, whereas construction cost is the contractor responsibility or payment to others, including subcontractors, including supplier, including manpower, etc., etc. Then only the different, if the difference is positive, then only contractor make money. Otherwise, contractor is basically on the losing term. All right. Monthly cost versus income. If, for instance, we divide the time of the project according to the month, from the start of the project until the end of the project. This is day 0. This is month number 1, 2, 3, or you can split between daily, weekly, etc. Doesn't matter. This is just want to show you the equation between etc. until, let's say, 24 months. Okay, the first day when contractor start a project, there is already cost that contractor have to bear. Contractor have to buy this and that, and there is a split between indirect costs and direct costs. Indirect costs sometimes being referred as a fixed cost. Fixed cost. Fixed cost mean um, even though it might not be the same, exactly the same every month, but we consider the fixed cost to be equal, almost equal, for us to really calculate the total cost. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Let's assume you yourself as a student, if you stay in a hostel or whatever, there is a cost that you need to pay almost every month. It's almost the same amount. You need to pay for the food, you need to pay for the hostel, you need to pay for the telecommunication bill, transportation bill, and etc. etc. That amount is almost like the same, even though there might be slight variation, but we assume it is about the same because for calculation purposes. So this is the indirect cost. So every month is about that you need to pay. Okay. So indirect cost is easy. The formula is easy, and it is almost like 10% of the total cost. But then, how about direct cost? Direct cost, it is like a parabolic when we reflect those things in terms of the start of the project. When you start a project, not much cost that you need to pay first. because at the beginning of the project, not so much activity. You are just bringing all the manpower. Of course, there is some cost, but that is not going to be drastically a lot that you need to put at the beginning of the project. Then you will start increase. Then the project is at the peak, where normally in Malaysia, I would assume when all the structure is up already, that will be the peak of the project, where people are very busy. Many activities are running at the same time. Then you have to pay for the plant, machinery, material, etc., etc. Then the construction is going to slow down. Why? Maybe the main structural element already completed. Then you start with the architectural finishing, interior, exterior finishing, then until the end of the project. That is basically the monthly spending in terms of the cost. Okay, remember monthly spending. First month is like that, second month. So the direct cost looks like a parabolic. Okay. Then the issue is that can we make this indirect cost and direct cost cumulative? What does cumulative mean? Cumulative mean when we add the first month into second month, then add second month into the third month, and etc. etc. Then we are going to see uh, the graph transform into certain shape. This is like the first month, second, third, until the end of the project. Let's say the project run for 24 months. It is like your grading, okay? So the previous graph is like the grade that you get every semester, individual grade. But then this graph is your CGPA. It is a cumulative. Okay, so similarly, the cost of the uh, construction cost or whatever, we can transform into what we call cumulative. I would say this one is cumulative indirect cost. So when the linear flat graph there, monthly flat graph, when you transform into cumulative, it will be like a linear. Okay, this is like a straight graph. Okay, but then the parabolic graph for direct cost, when you transform into cumulative graph, it will take into a shape like so-called S kind of shape. But that S is not like this exactly this kind of S. So it looks like, okay, it's not going to be completely like the S that we always use to write things. Well, the shape people relate to like S. Okay, then what happened if at any point of the time we take this value plus this value, but this indirect graph by right, it should be a little bit lower because it is just 10% of the value. This one is 90%. So the graph is not proportionate anyway. But if you take this value plus this value, you add them up, then it will take a bigger curve. So the S curve will again be plotted to reflect the what we call a total cost, which is combination of direct cost plus indirect cost. So this S curve is the one that people in the industry worldwide always refer to. How do this S curve come about? It's basically based on this concept. Okay, based on this concept, we take the cost, monthly cost of the project, then we split into indirect. For sure, indirect plus direct will be the total cost, and then when if we transform into cumulative, then S curve will be formed. Okay, so what is the usage of S curve? The usage of S curve, either this is what we call it financial. We do have another one. We do have another one. We call it physical S curve. Okay. There are two different S curve. One is based on the cost, finance, money. Another one, physical, is based on duration of the activity. Later on, I will show you. So both will be in the form of S curve, but in terms of the value that you take in order to construct the S curve, one is based on money, one is based on duration, and that's why they call by different name. So whatever it is, either financial S curve or physical S curve, is widely being used in the industry to reflect indicator to what extent you have been progress in terms of financially and physically. Because otherwise, when people ask you, let's say you manage certain project, people ask you, oh, what is the progress of the project? How are you going to explain to that guy in a simple word? It's very difficult. You need to explain, oh, our project is like how many acre, and then how many building. So the first building is 4 story. Now we have already constructed one. Well, that is a long narration. So you better make it simple. Maybe when you mention, well, so far we already progressed about 20%. Okay, now people have some perception. 20% is not much. Okay, maybe at the beginning, if for instance you have 2 years of the project, so you can imagine 20%, it is like 20 times 2, maybe around 4 to 5 months only. But it is not going to be exactly accurate, because there are a lot of interpretation, but this is just indicator. Whatever indicator that you use can be subject to argument, question, but it is better than not having indicator. When you do not have an indicator, then it is much difficult to explain. Okay, having indicator is like weather forecast. When weather forecast might not be exactly accurate, but at least when you have that weather forecast, you can have some kind of indicator what is going to happen today in terms of weather. All right, determining project costs. How to determine project costs? Okay, estimating process, taking off. I think by now you already familiar with this word taking off, because you should have learned in construction technology, estimating, and contract class. Okay, so some portion of the class did basically teach you how to take off. Taking off is a work of a quantity surveyor majority, but we as a civil engineer also need to learn this thing, because in planning is the responsibility of the engineer. It is not responsibility of quantity surveyor. That is the issue. When you want to do planning, you need to have the quantity, because when you do planning, uh, the work is being split into a smaller portion. You cannot cast the floor of a long building in one go. Okay, you construct the what we call the platform, and then you put the rebar and then formwork. But then when you do the concreting, it is not advisable you do the concreting one go, because it is going to be very heavy. Normally you do portion by portion. Okay, so in such a way you split the work. So you want to know, when you split the work, how much is that work, so that you can put into your planning as activities. Okay, so that is the issue. So taking off is the process of getting the quantities from the drawing. Okay, when engineer design things based on the calculation, they put everything on drawing only. So just imagine, from the drawing, you need to extract the quantity of the rebar and then the dimension of the formwork, the quantity of the concrete, etc., etc. Then you put this thing into the BQ, so bill of quantities. Okay. Once you have the bill of quantities, then only you can calculate the cost of work. Why? Once you attach the unit rate of the work, how much basically how much is the cost per unit of work that you want to do. So one, you already have the quantity, and then the unit rate, you time with the quantity, then you will get the amount. Okay, the amount or the cost to do each of the activity. When you add up all the costs, then it becomes a total cost. Okay, but remember, when we talk about unit rate consists of man, machine, material plus profit, P. If we are talking about the contractor's perspective, when contractor put unit rate into the tender, so that unit rate already inclusive of the profit. But if, for instance, contractor just want to know how much cost that basically they are liable for, so it is sufficient just simply have include this man, machine, and material. But when they input into the tender, it must inclusive of the profit. But the client do not know what is the portion of the profit. But people in the construction industry basically already have some idea in mind. Normally, how much of the profit that can they generate. Okay. Preparing realistic cost schedule and incorporating costs into each activity. Okay, once you already know the quantity of each activity, then basically you already know the cost for each activity. You split according to all the activities. So when you input into Microsoft project, as I gave you example, that's why each of the activity should have cost associated with that. Because there is no logic when you do each activity, then there is no cost. Maybe activity with no cost may be associated with I would say inspection. When you do inspection, when you do observation, basically there is not much cost associated with that. But the rest of activity just mentioned excavation, site clearing, piling, concreting, formwork, rebar, everything should have some kind of cost associated with man, machine, and material. Determining a cost requirement across project duration. Okay. So first thing first, you identify the cost according to the activity. But then the next step, you distribute the cost, or you wanted to know the cost as per project duration in terms of weekly, monthly, or even yearly. Why? Because based on the claim, you claim the project based on a certain time scale. In normal practice, we normally claim according to month. Why? Because everything have to be paid in terms of month, the monthly salary of the workers being paid monthly, and then you need to pay for the supplier, subcontractor, everything is being done per month basis. It is much easier. Or even though in some countries, certain payment are being attached or being paid according to weekly. In country like Australia, UK, even US, some of the payment are being made being based on monthly. No, weekly, not monthly. Okay, if you pay rent in if you rent a house in Australia or UK, they are being divided according to weekly, not monthly. So meaning to say you have to pay more, because if you divide a month is only 12. But if you take into account the weekly, in 1 year, we do have around, is it 52? 52 weeks. Okay. If you count, actually, you have to pay more. And that's why the system is like that. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how to distribute the cost and even project duration according to the time scale that we have. Okay, first thing first, we do have activity. Let's say activity is being named as A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, let's say that is the name of the activity. Then the cost. Where does this cost come from? Is from our calculation that we mentioned, BQ, or the quantity times unit rate, then it is equivalent to amount in terms of the cost. Okay, if you want to calculate in terms of the cost, then that is the cost. Cost meaning to say without profit. When we mention cost in the cash flow calculation, we mean without profit. When we mention value, value meaning to say cost plus profit. Now let's assume each of the activity A, B, C, we refer to the cost. A is 90,000 and then B 190, etc., etc. So if we add all the activities cost, then it will become 850. Okay. Now A is projected to run for 2 months. The yellow box there indicate the bar chart for A. Okay, A will be running for January until February. You just notice the project is only from January until June. That is the end of the project, meaning to say it is only 6 months. But in terms of the activity or effort, will be put much more than that. A itself will be running for 2 months. And then how about B? B will be running for 3 months according to the length of the bar chart. C will be running for 2 months, D 1 month, and then E 2 months, and then lastly F is 1 month. And then inside the bar chart is being written there. That is the cost being distributed. For A, for instance, 90,000. If we distribute them equally, then basically each month will be around 45,000. But not in a realistic situation, we distribute the cost monthly. Why? The realistic one is based on this curve. You see, the direct cost should be something like parabolic. So the second activity, B, B is much more realistic, meaning to say the first portion of the activity will be running in the February is around 50,000. Okay, that is not much. But then in March, 100,000. And then the activity slowing down in April is 40,000. So this is more realistic. But remember, in academic or in final exam question that you receive for assignment number 3, if you read the statement there, the statement mentioned assume the cost is a prorate. Prorate means to say you can average out. It is like A. Okay, when you average out the cost, you just divide equally between the month. Okay, if in a real situation, so the one in B or even in C, in D is much more realistic. Okay, so it depends. in our situation, we just simply already split the cost. Okay, after we split the cost, then what we are going to do? Then we can distribute the cost according to month. Okay, the cash flow we split according to the duration of the project, monthly, or we can split even weekly, but more realistically based on month. Okay, but in my project, in my Microsoft project, I split. I give the example in project monitoring, we split into weekly, bi-weekly. Bi-weekly meaning to say 2 weekly. Okay, because the project is very short. If I split into month, meaning to say only 2 months, then we are not going to have many data. When we plot the S curve might not look nice. When you have so many data, then only you will see the S curve will be formed much nicer in terms of the S shape. Okay, now we assume that we split into month. So based on the first month, okay, what we can do is basically January. Focus on January, and in January, what is or are the activity taking place? It looks like in January, the activity taking place is only activity part of activity A. The rest of the activity basically do not start yet. So in January, only portion of A already started. Then how much is that activity cost? 45,000. So we put 45,000. Then we can put at the end of the month. Normally, all the calculation of cash flow at the end of the month. Okay, at the end of the month, then we basically spend the cost around 45,000. Okay, next in February, look at what are the activity running in February. It looks like certain portion of A and a certain portion of B. What could be the cost? 45,000 plus 50,000, which is 95,000. And then how about March? March, only certain portion of B is around 100,000. April do have a lot of activity running at the same time. Then you see B, C, D, E, you add them up, then it becomes 330. May, 100,000, 80,000, 180, and then June is 100,000. So you'll get this value, okay, the cost, okay, because sometimes we use the word value and cost. So you have to be very careful when you do the calculation. Value mean different things, cost mean different thing, but we always mention the word value. Value mean the amount, okay. All right, that will be the cost in terms of monthly. This, I would say, this is monthly. But then how about the cumulative costs? So how to get this cumulative cost? Very easy. At the end of the first month is 45,000. Then at the end of the February, the second month, you just simply add 45,000 with the second month, with the February cost, then you will get 140. So you add with the amount of the next month plus next month plus next month. That is how you get the cumulative. So February, at the end of February, the cumulative amount is 140. Then plus at the end of the March 100,000, then you will get 240. So you do that until the end of the June, you will get 850. You notice that this 850 is the same as when you add all the costs together. Because remember, the cost is given initially according to activities. But what you are doing now is you split those costs now according to month, each month. So there is a monthly cost that you can generate, and then cumulative costs that you can generate. And you know what? Once you have this data, okay, actually you can plot S-curve. S-curve, you can plot S-curve. This is January, February, March, April, May, June. June, and how do you get this dot? This dot is basically based on this amount, 45,000, the first one. I write down here 45K. Second one is 140K. Third one will be 240K. 240K. The fourth one will be 570K. The fifth one would be 750. 750. And for sure, the last one here would be 850K. You see, this is what we call financial cash flow graph based on what we call plan. So we plan to spend this amount on the costs each month. So this is what we call plan, or in other words, is what we call our target. Okay, that is our target. But we do not know yet. In reality, when you really start the project, what could be the actual cost? The actual cost is another topic we are going to mention in project monitoring and control. So that's what we call in planning, we call it tracking. Okay, now you already know how basically S-curve based on financial is being developed. Okay, you might have seen this thing when you did your practical training at a certain construction site, but you might not know how it was being developed. Now I'm telling you how, because later on, when you become engineer, you are the one that need to construct this thing. Because at construction site, there is nobody else. There will be project manager. Project manager also sometimes are not there at all time, and then there will be supervisor. Supervisor do not do this. It is the responsibility of engineer. Later on, when you start working, then you know how difficult is this to do the real work, because everything that you learn in university is just a basic. We're just telling you a very basic thing because there are a lot of things that we need to cover in a short period of time, 4 years. Otherwise, you need to spend 10 years to study the whole things. Okay, now that will be financial cash flow. The next one, based on the same project activity, but now I am going to show you what if uh, we consider the duration of activity. Now I just erase this thing in order to show you another way of constructing what we call the S-curve based on activity duration. Remember, our project still the same, start from January until June. So you go by each column. So cash flow is basically we refer to column and row. So column January. So in January, take a look at what are the activity running in January. So it looks like the one which is running is only certain portion of A. Now we focus on the duration of the activity. Okay, we focus on duration of activity. So basically A, 2 week, 2 month. Okay, 2 month, and the first month will be month will be done in January, and the second month of A will be done in February. So, meaning to say, in January, only one activity, one portion of activity running, and that is basically 1 month of work effort. So you write down 1 month, okay, 1 month here, 1 month. And then for February, so it looks like two activity running at the same time, and that amount of time is basically 1 month in for A and then another month for B. So when you add those things together, then become 2 months. 2 months of work effort. Okay, 2 months of work effort because things are being done concurrently using perhaps different team. March, only one activity. So that one activity is equivalent to 1 month of effort. But then how about February? February, there are four activity running at the same time. So 1 month for activity B, another month for activity C, the third and fourth month. When you add them together, they become 4 months. Then in May, 1 plus 1 month equivalent 2 months, and then in June equivalent to 1. Okay, that will be the monthly effort. How much effort that you need to spend in order to execute the work. For January, you need to spend 1 month. Okay, and when you take this thing as cumulative, so at the end of January, 1 month effort will be spent. And then at the end of February, 1 plus 2. 2 from the February work. 1 plus 2 equivalent to 3. 3 plus 1 equivalent to 4. 4 plus 4 equivalent to 8. 8 plus 2 equivalent to 10. 10 plus 1 equivalent to 11. You notice 11. What does 11 mean? 11 mean the work effort that you need to spend for a period of 6 months project duration. So project duration is only 6 months, January until June, but the work effort is 11 months. Why? Because there are certain activity being done concurrently. So don't be confused with the project duration and then the activity effort. I would say the physical work that you need to do is equivalent to 11 months. But in terms of the duration that you have is only 6 months. So based on that thing, you know what? You can plot another S curve. Okay, S curve. This is January, February, March, April, May, and June. And you notice this figure 1, 3, 4, 8, 10, and 11. So this dot basically represent all those values. Okay, represent, let me erase this thing a little bit. Okay, this is what we call plan. And then what else? May here, and then here. So in terms of the duration of activity, I can write down here is 1 month. This one is 3. This one is 4. This one is 8, 10, and 11. But sometimes when you do that, then people might confuse. What is this? This is the time. So this is also the time. The vertical axis is also time. So that's why we convert into percentage. How to convert into percentage is very easy. You notice 1 here. 1, you divide by the total duration of work effort time 100%. You should get 9.1%. So people normally would relate to the percentage in terms of physical progress. So that's how the percentage is being calculated. And you know what? In terms of the cash flow, you can also calculate the percentage instead of putting the amount of money. See, you notice, how do you calculate? 45,000 divided by the total amount is 150,000. K. Then you time is 100%, so you will get certain percentage. Okay, you can calculate that thing, so you can convert that in terms of percentage. All right, so now this is financial cash flow is here. This is what we call physical S-curve. Again, this is the plan. The plan based on what we call the bar chart that we have. So you notice that in order to construct the S-curve, we need the bar chart. Without this bar chart, you simply cannot construct the S-curve. Because what are the value that you are going to calculate? You cannot base on anything. So as I mentioned very early in my planning and scheduling class, at the beginning of the class, if you remember the slide, what is the purpose of scheduling? One of the purpose is basically the basis for monitoring and controlling. So in monitoring, we need to develop this kind of S-curve. And how do you develop the S-curve? It's based on the bar chart. So that's why bar chart is always there in a scheduling software, even in Microsoft or even in Primavera, even though we want to take a look at the network diagram, but the bar chart is always there because that is the basis to calculate the S-curve, either financial and physical. Okay, so now let's take a look at another example. I just want to show you, if you do have a lot of activities for a project like this one, a lot more compared to this one, then we can distribute. This is the bar chart, and then this is the cost according to either week or month, whatever. So I convert into the Excel, for instance. I put into Excel. So these are the activities, and then this is the cost. I convert into monthly. Okay, I just assume this is monthly cost. So how many months of the project is 17 months, whereas the distribution of the cost is being shown here. And then for month number 1, for instance, this is the cost. And then if you take the cumulative at the end of each month, so at the end of the day, the cost is 54,500. Okay, let's say 54,500. And again, if you add all the costs according to the activities, then you will get 54,500 also. Okay, as I mentioned, each of the activity must have some kind of cost. It is illogical when you input into Microsoft project, you have so many activities, and then suddenly one of the activity basically doesn't have any cost. Is it? Are you getting that thing free of charge? So no. Each activity, there must be manpower needed to construct things, machine, and even material. So there must be a cost. So each of the activity, you must basically attach cost. And then when you distribute then according to month and then cumulative, when you plot a graph, so this kind of graph that I get, it doesn't look like a nice S-curve, but whatever the graph that you plot, if you have a big project, you will get some kind of this graph. Except that either it will take a look at take some kind of S-curve shape or not. That is basically depend on how well you distribute the activity. Okay. All right. That is the fundamental of the S-curve. Okay. Project cash flow forecasting. Project cash flow forecasting. Forecasting meaning to say there is an element of uncertainties. Okay, uncertainties uh, whereby we can do this thing even at the start of the project. We don't even start the project yet, but you can do the forecasting. Forecasting is basically to be prepared for the worst. Okay, that's why people do forecast. It's just like a weather forecast. Okay, we do weather forecast even before the event take place. So similarly, even before we start the project, based on our scheduling or planning, we can do the forecasting. What is forecasting? Is the projection of income and expense. Income from the contractor's perspective is the payment that you will get from the client. Payment from client. Whereas expense is the amount contractor have to bear or to pay to others. Contractor have to pay to the subcontractor, supplier, workers, etc., etc. So that is the expense. Okay. Whereas the income, contractor source of income is only one, from the client payment. Okay, because that is the nature of your work. You give your service in terms of construction, and then you get payment. Why is it so important? Why we need to do the cash flow forecasting? To ensure adequate cash. You know what? In in the planning slide, I gave you top 10 reasons why basically project fail. One of the failure is based on the issue of payment. Payment issue. When contractor do not have enough money, either contractor is getting late payment or no payment, or even contractor do not have capital. In order to do business, you must have your own money. You cannot basically depend on client payment alone, because sometimes client pay very late, sometimes client pay insufficient. It is not based what you claim, so it is always there. The situation is always like that. It is to be made available at the appropriate time. Okay, when you do the project cash flow forecasting, for sure you can expect in what particular month that you will be running short of cash. That is very important. When you are running short of cash, then where do you want to get your money from? Okay, so you have to be prepared. Maybe let's say you get a project for this year, 1 year from January until December. From your calculation, it looks like in the month of April, for instance, will be you will be running short of cash to the maximum. So you need to get money. You need to inject the money. So where to get the money? You can get the money from lender or financier, or even if you have money, your own money, you do not keep your money cash in the office or at house, isn't it? The money that you have normally you will basically invest in other instrument, like you invest in unit trust, you put into fixed deposit. You do not want to withdraw all the money very early, because you are going to lose the dividend. So the timing is very important. So that's why you need to know when and then how much. How much? When you go and ask the bank, for instance, uh, the we do have what we call bridging loan. Bridging loan. Bridging loan is normally being used to finance business, especially contractor, in a short when they are short of cash. Okay, in certain period of time, the cash might be running very low because of the sometimes the nature of the work basically is slow, or even you might not get the payment yet, so you need to have assistance. So the bank can give you loan, but then the issue is that the bank is not easily going to give you loan without any kind of calculation. So that's why a bank also wants to have some kind of proof, because the way the bank operate is based on calculated risk. The bank do not want to take risks. Once the bank is basically convinced that uh, you are able to pay, then only the bank will give you loan. Otherwise, bank will not do that. Okay, that's why bank always profitable. There is no bank closed down. Okay, how many in your life that you hear that bank in Malaysia has been closing down? Well, all the bank basically making money. Why? Uh, the- Everything basically they do based on calculated risk. If you are a very risky person, then there is no loan for you. That's how bank operate. Okay. So, meaning to say, knowing your cash requirement is very important so that you can be prepared for the worst. Okay, how to prepare cash flow data? Okay, there are a few steps. I would say step number 2 and 3 can be interchanged. 1 and 2 can be interchanged. Not necessarily you have to follow step 1 first. You can basically sometimes go to step 2 and then go back to step 1. So because it is matter of getting the right data. Okay. First, gathering information related to cost distribution. What is the cost distribution? Okay, this is an example. This is what we call cost distribution. You see, you distribute according to monthly or weekly. It depends on your unit. Similarly, this is what we call distribution according to month. Okay, so that will be the first step. So the first step is very easy. Step number 2, gathering information on payment and expenditure. Payment and expenditure meaning to say, when are you going to get payment from the client? How much is the payment? Okay. So the payment actually, if we do not consider many things, is almost equivalent to value. Remember, our formula is value equivalent to cost plus profit. So this formula is very important in order to do the cash flow calculation. Okay, cash flow calculation. So payment is almost similar to value, but then later on we are going to take the net payment. Okay, the net payment meaning to say sometimes there could be deduction. Whatever the value, it is not going to be the same as value that we claim. We are not going to get exactly the same payment. There will be some kind of deduction based on the contract term and condition. Okay, expenditure. Expenditure is very easy. This is what we call equivalent to the cost uh, to contractor. To contractor. Remember, the cash flow calculation that we explain in our slide, we assume based on contractors, okay, contractors cash flow in a project. Okay, so we do not focus on the client, we just focus on the contractor. Then step number 3, data analysis, which should eventually resulted in cash out and cash in. Cash in is basically the same as the payment. But as I mentioned, not 100% of the payment that the claim that contractor put forward will be exactly paid to the contractor. That is the issue. So that's why we need to uh, to come up with what we call net cash in. Net meaning to say after deducting so many things. Later on, we are going to show you in example calculation. Cash out. Cash out is equivalent to the cost. The cost is very easy. For our example, we just assume that once you start a project, you are going to spend money. There will be expenditure to pay for material, manpower, and machine. In certain books, they even split the cost according to indirect costs and direct costs, meaning to say, for indirect costs, there will be some preliminary costs. For the direct costs, then there will be a split of material costs, machinery, and labor. Sometimes the labor costs are being paid first, whereas the cost for machinery and materials can be paid later, because sometimes contractor do receive or do get what we call credit facility from supplier of machinery or material. But in our example, we just assume the cost is being paid, all the costs, meaning to say the man, material, and machinery is being paid at the beginning. When the project start, we already have some kind of costs being paid, and then it will accumulate until the end of the project. So that is to make calculation much simpler. But if you refer to other books, there will be a more what we call extensive variation of the cost. But in our case, we just simply want to show to make the cost calculation as simple as possible. Just to give you an example. And then lastly, step number 4, plotting the graph of payment versus income. Okay, then only we can determine the cash requirement. So you notice that the word cash requirement is the one that we are looking or we want to find ultimately. That is our intention. We want to know how much is the cash required by the contractor, because contractor need to be prepared, and we want to find the maximum cash. Maximum cash meaning to say that is the maximum impact the contractor will have to face, and when is that thing is going to happen, in what particular month. Okay, so that is our intention. So if we draw the last step here into graph, you are going to look at this type of graph. There are two graphs here. First one is the cash out. This is like the S curve, the cost S curve. Okay, cost S curve, but it doesn't look like the smooth F curve. S curve doesn't matter because it is based on each month. Okay, let's assume this is the first month. Month number 1, this is month number 2, this is month number 3, this is month number 4, this is month number 5. So it looks like the project completion, practical completion, I say PC. PC, practical completion, mean that is the end of the project. Project will last only in 5 months. Okay, so for the cost, when you start a project, for sure there is no cost involved yet, but then as the project basically progress, there are money that you need to spend to pay for the workers, etc., etc. Then basically the cost will be accumulated like the S curve. Okay, and then it will stop. It will stop when the project already complete. This is what we call practical completion. But then, why do you have this graph? Ah, okay. This graph indicate even though you already finish your project, hand over the project to the client, but your responsibility is not done yet. Remember, in construction, we do have what we call defect liability period. What is defect liability period? Defect liability period is like warranty. If you buy handphone, then they give you warranty 1 year. So how about building? Building is much more expensive. When you buy house, you should have the warranty as well, isn't it? So in when contractor construct building or whatever project, then there is a defect liability period, just like warranty. Within 1 year or 1.5 years, it depends on the term and condition of contract. So contractor still have the responsibility. Even though contractor might not be at that particular project anymore, because once you finish the project, you need to demobilize, you need to clear everything off, but the responsibility is still there. So that's why in terms of the accounting system, so the cost will be, since it is a cumulative, the value, the cost amount is still being reflected in the accounting system. And perhaps this is the end of the project, what we call the final account. Final account is when the contractor already completed the defect liability period. It could be 6 months or 1 year or even 1.5 year, depend on how big is the project. If the project is very small, so the defect liability period is basically should be less, okay, compared to a big project. And then that will be the S curve associated with the cost that contractor have to basically bear. And then there is another curve, what we call step graph. This is what we call step graph. Okay. Step graph, if you notice, why it becomes step graph? Okay, now we start with starting from the beginning of the project period. When contractor first start the project, do contractor receive any payment from the client? Well, basically no. The nature of the construction payment, when you complete certain activities or certain work, then only the payment will be given. So at the end of the project, at the beginning of the project, so there is no payment. It is similar to like the salary. When you start working, your boss is not going to pay you the salary at the beginning of the month, isn't it? Only at the end of the month you will receive your salary. Similarly, when you do construction work, the client only pay you after you submit your claim. Then you see, you need to make claim. Let's say the first month you do the work, but then you need to submit the claim. So you notice from this graph, the first month basically you have no payment, so there will be a flat line here, the red one that I'm drawing here, and then you submit claim, and you know what? The claim itself will take some time to be verified. The client and the client agent, especially the consultant at the construction site, then we'll basically try to verify whether your claim is accurate or not. Okay, so they will go and check here and there, and then they will submit to the client, and then the client will agree, and then whatnot. So by the time you want to receive your payment, so 1 month is already gone. So not only the first month you are not going to get money, then the whole month, perhaps in the second month, You will not get the money at the middle or at the beginning of the month, only at the end of the second month, if you lucky enough. Sometimes even not in the second month, sometimes it could encroach into the third month. Okay, let's assume at the end of the second month, you receive some payment. So this is the dot. So that's why suddenly you have the vertical line, because the amount of money that you will get. But the amount of money you will get is just once only. It is like your salary. You only get a salary once a month at the end of the month. Then what happened? Okay, in the third month, basically you will have to wait. So that's why the graph becomes flat here. Then only at the end of the third month, uh, you will receive the payment based on the second month claim, because that is the practice. Every month you do the work, then you need to submit the claim. Then the client representative will evaluate the claim. Then only the payment will be released based on that claim. Meaning to say, it is always like 1 or 2 month delay in terms of the payment, because that is the practice. So let's assume the third month you will get some kind of amount, and then so it will continue on and on. It is like a step graph. It is similar to your salary. Whatever that you spend, let's say now is 13th of January. I am spending money to buy food, rent, utilities, etc., etc., based on my previous month's salary. It is not this month's salary, because I don't get any salary yet until the end of the month. So similarly, if you plot your financial S curve, financial what we call payment, it is like a step graph. Like if, for instance, you are getting a scholarship or PTPTN, how many time you get the money in one semester, in 1 year? It's only one time, isn't it? So there is only two steps in the whole year. But in terms of spending, you spend every day. So spending every day is like S curve. So that's why here you notice here. So the graph will continue until the following month. Even though we say the practical completion is only the end of the fifth month, but then you notice end of 6 month only you will get the payment, the complete payment in terms of the monthly progress. But then see, you notice here. But then how about how this graph basically become flat there, because the issue of the final account is still there. And at the end of the project final account, then only you will see something. This is what we call value. This is what we call cost. The difference between value and cost, this is what we call profit. If you plot the graph according to what you get in terms of what you spend and how much the payment received, then only you will see the profit is going to be materialized only at the end of the contract period. Okay, because in each month it looks like you are running short of money. You notice the one that I draw here, these indicate the gap between the amount of this one is better. Only after the 6 month, then you will see the positive, but the rest is basically in the negative, meaning to say you need cash. Okay, you need cash because you spend more than what you receive. And in this graph, you notice that uh, it looks like every month, basically we need cash, except on the after the 6 month. Among the point, there could be the maximum amount of money that you receive. So what is the maximum amount of money that you receive? Is the differences between the cash out value for that particular month, and then the money that you have in that particular month. Okay, you notice here. Let me erase here. Let's say in the month of 4, this is the cash out. This is the amount that you basically already pay to everybody from your own pocket. But how much is the money that you have? So at the end of 4th month, it looks like you are going to get some kind of payment. So this is the gap. But you notice that the gap is only happening in that particular day when you receive the payment. How about the bigger gap? The bigger gap is basically uh, is the differences between the amount of money that you have to basically is getting up from your pocket and the amount of money that you have. The amount of money that you have is basically based on the previous month. It is not based on the date that you get the salary. That is just one day that you only happy, but the rest of the month is basically you have been suffering. So in order to make it more realistic, the cash requirement is the one that we want to calculate is being defined by, so I would say cash require is equivalent to cash out graph value minus cash in. Minus cash in. Let's say for the month of the 4th month, let's say I want to calculate the cash requirement for the 4th month. I would take the value for the cash out in the 4th month minus the cash in figure in the previous month, means to say the 3rd month. Then only you have the accurate basically calculation. Otherwise, we are going to make inaccurate assumption due to the fact that you just simply receive money today, whereas you have been suffering for the past month. Which one is give a bigger impact? So the bigger impact is basically the money that you have in the previous month is uh, compared to the amount of money that you have to pay to others. So that is the differences between uh, the cash out and cash in. So we want to calculate that value, and then when it is happening, perhaps it will be happening at the end of a particular month. So that is the answer that we are looking at. And if you notice, the question with regard to the cash flow is always asking for this value. What is the maximum cash requirement, and when do these things happen? We do have example in previous example at the end of the slide, but we are going to take a break. Okay, take a 10-minute break. Okay, let me pause the record. Factor that influence project cash flow. First, the frequency of the payment. The frequency of the payment, meaning to say, if the client pay the contractor according to the, let's say, monthly, without any delay. Because the issue is that sometimes when the contractor submit the claim according to the time schedule, monthly for instance, but then the client will take some time to evaluate, or they will somehow delay to pay the contractor. Not according to the month, but sometimes maybe in 1.5 months, or even sometimes encroach into 2 months. So you will see when, so the payment basically refer to this, this is what we call payment graph. So this looks like a better payment, what we call schedule, because every month, for instance, contractor get the payment, except that the gap here indicate delay in the initial payment, in the first payment, as in the second, what we call factor. Okay, delay factor on the first. Instead of paying the second month, now it encroached into perhaps in 2.5 months. You see, automatically you can see this big gap compared to this kind of graph. You notice why? Because of the delay in the first payment. Alone, you can see the differences between the cash required getting bigger and bigger. So this is not a good thing for the contractor. Okay. Then contract value and profit margin are interrelated. When, for instance, your contract value is a big amount, you get a big amount, and then your profit is a lot more in terms of percentage, or in terms of margin. If you look at this graph, which one will be affected? This payment graph basically will be increased. Why? Because you get more profit. Maybe I can draw something like this. You see? Maybe. Then you notice the gap is getting smaller compared to the original graph. Why? Because the profit is a lot. When profit a lot, profit will be incorporated into the payment, even though the client might not know how much profit you make. But let's say you put profit margin 30%, and you control the project nicely, so you are able to get that thing. So the client will pay according to what basically you claim, and basically you are able to decrease the gap between the cost and then the payment. Okay, that is good thing. Retention fund. Okay, now retention fund. Retention fund normally is 5% of value, of contract value. Okay, retention fund is being practiced normally in the construction industry worldwide, but in Malaysia, normally in the private sector they do practice this one, but in a government contract, government tend to be lenient a little bit, because you know what? When contractor are being imposed 5%, 5% meaning to say deduction from the payment every month. Let's say contractor claim 100,000 every month, then 5,000, no, 5%, 5% of 100,000, that would be, is it 5,000? Okay, 5,000 will be deducted, meaning to say contractor only get 95,000 in the account. Why? Because the retention fund 5%, meaning to say is being retained or being kept by the client. Why do client want to keep the contractor money? The money basically belongs to the contractor, but why basically the client want to keep and not pay in full? There is a reason for that. It has something to do with what we call the issue of what? Let me go back to this graph. Okay, the issue of defect liability period. You notice this graph, okay? Defect liability period, this could be the period before the closing of the account. Even though the project already completed here, practical completion is here, But then, as I mentioned, there is a warranty on whatever the constructed, what we call item by the contractor as a warranty, but we don't call it warranty, we call it defect liability period. And during that time, anything that happened to that building or the project in terms of the building crack or the structural failure, whatever, contractor have to rectify, have to repair, have to even to replace whatever. But now, because the project already completed and the contractor is basically gone already, going back to their respective headquarters, so there is nobody around at the construction site anymore because that building is start being handed over to the buyers and whatnot. They are already operating, but now suddenly they notice crack on the wall, whatever thing happened, and they will claim to the developer, and developer will ask the contractor to rectify the defect. Okay, to rectify the defect. But oftentimes, because contractor is not around, the contractor will take some time, or even sometimes not coming at all, because they simply don't care. Because maybe they already have their profit, even though 5% is still there. Okay, so but then the complaint is keep coming to the developer. So what shall the developer do? Because if the developer want to wait for the contractor to come, the contractor sometime just wait until at the end of the month, so that they could be many complaints. They wanted to do all the complaint together, so the customer might not be happy with that. So what can the client do is asking different contractor, okay, whoever contractor interested to do the rectification work, they can come, and then but then the client have to pay. So where does the money come from? Well, now the client can take the money from the what we call retention fund that the client has been keeping, for whatever amount, only sufficient to rectify the defect. Okay, let's say at the end of the defect liability period, some amount of money has been spent by the client because the contractor didn't come to do the repair works. So the remaining will be returned only after a certain period of time, normally at the end of the what we call uh, a final account. It will be returned to the contractor completely. So there could be arrangement, because sometimes the retention fund, if we calculate 5% of the contract value, which is quite a huge amount of money, so sometimes the arrangement is that after the contractor completed the work here, then perhaps half of the retention fund can be paid maybe in the following month, immediately after completion of the work, whereas the other half will be paid during the final account. Because there is no point that a client keep a lot of amount of the what we call money, uh, whereas that amount of money basically can be used by the contractor to pay for other things. Okay, because even for defect purposes, it will not be equivalent to that much anyway. That is the idea. Okay, if for instance, that's why in government do not impose the retention fund, uh, due to the fact that if government impose, then the contractor will be running short of money again. If you notice, if the government impose retention of fund, what would happen to this graph? Which graph is going to be affected? Actually, this graph, the cash in graph. So meaning to say, contractor is going to be paid less. See, you notice the graph is going to be lower and lower. Okay, lower and lower, meaning to say contractor will now have a bigger short of cash. So that's why government try not to impose that. Okay, because um, at the end of the day, if contractor is having difficulties in terms of funding, payment, then basically they will slow down the project. It will basically have impact on the government. That is the issue. Term of payment to the supplier. Okay, credit facility. Credit facility. Okay, sometimes supplier, in order to get a project from the contractor, it's not an easy thing. There are a lot of lobbying going around. But if that supplier get a contract with that particular contractor for a period of 2-3 years, that will be a good thing for the supplier. But not without any some kind of so-called benefit. So supplier had to be very creative. One of the creativity is basically giving credit facilities. Credit facility meaning to say contractor can take whatever the material that he or she want, but then don't have to pay immediately on the spot. Just take the material first, and then you can pay later. 1 or 2 month credit facilities. It is like having a credit card. You see, now most of the bank card that you have is a debit card. Debit card meaning to say if you have money, then you can spend. But credit card is different. Credit card is the bank that pay the merchant first. If you go to Eon, for instance, with a credit card, even though you don't have any money in your bank account, so the bank will pay the Eon first. Later on, you will have to pay the bank. If you are not able to pay, and then bank say, okay, you can pay only a minimum payment, but then we are going to charge you interest. That's how bank profit from the credit card. Similarly, supplier can do that, but if you charge the contractor with some kind of interest, then there will be a problem later on. So, meaning to say, even the supplier also need to have what we call lender. That's why supplier basically need to have money also in order to be a supplier. So even supplier also have to get loan from the bank because they are not going to get payment from the contractor as immediately when the material has been dispatched. Okay, please expect that kind of thing. Then front end loading. What does this front end loading is related to unit rate. Remember when I mentioned unit rate, this unit rate consists of man, machine, and material plus profit. So profit is there already. How much is the profit? It depends. Certain item could be 10% profit, 15, 20, 25, 30%, or even 5%, or even sometimes are not much profitable. Okay. So the issue is that if you look at the S curve here, um, if you look at the S curve here, for instance, if for instance you can get a lot of payment at the beginning of the project, meaning to say we can draw simply like this. The graph is like this. It's going to be high. See, extra payment or a lot of payment at the beginning of the project. So meaning to say you have money to roll because the money that you spend will be used to finance the work in that particular month or the forthcoming month, but then you get the payment later on. So in such a way, it will not be a burden to your cash. So how to get this kind of thing? Only if you put extra high profit in the unit rate. In the unit rate for the work that basically you do at the beginning of the project. What could be the beginning of the project? Normally involve a lot of infrastructure works, site preparation work, site clearing, cut and fill, earthwork, etc., etc. So if you want to have a lot of money or some kind of profit, so um, you put a higher margin, profit margin, in the unit rate at the beginning of the project. But that is the issue. The client also, nowadays you cannot cheat because the client also very smart. The client also do not want or do not like when they see the S curve at the beginning of the project that you give the client. It looks like a little bit curve or bulging at the beginning of the project, like this one. For instance, if you put a lot of profit at the beginning of the project, your S curve will be somehow like this. Okay, you see, this is what we call bulging. So the client might not like this kind of situation. The client also very smart, and the client also have to loan money from the bank in order to pay you. So the client also do not have that much money actually. So that's why the system in Malaysia, when you buy a house, for instance, the client will claim from you. Let's say the piling is basically already done, then you will get a bill. Okay, please pay 10% because we already done the piling. That is the concept. Okay, so the client also do not have money. So you can do that if the client basically don't really care or don't really bother about that. Then basically it is for your own benefit. You can get extra money so that you can roll for the others, what we call work, maybe in the middle of the project, etc. Overpayment. Overpayment is not the same as front end loading. Uh, how to get overpayment? When you claim more, can you claim more than what you're supposed to do? Well, there is a possibility. In construction, sometimes it do happen. Okay, it do happen. Let's say you claim 100,000 worth of work, whereas your actual work is only 80,000. Okay, but then the client need to check. Sometimes the client, because of they themselves also very busy, they don't go and check every detail. So they just simply approve and then you get that kind of payment, 100,000. Why is that so? Why you need overpayment? Because again, if you get more payment, your graph will be higher up, and then basically, you see, the gap will be reduced. It doesn't mean that you get overpayment at the beginning of the month, then it will accumulate. At the end of the day, it will be more than what the contract value. No, 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 no. That is not going to happen. Actually, whatever payment that you receive every month, we do call it interim payment. What does interim payment do? Simply mean interim payment, meaning to say uh, they just simply pay you first, and then whatever the less or more in term of payment will be adjusted later on. So because your project is running for 2 years, it doesn't matter. Maybe on the first month you will get more, But then later on, when they realize, they will basically adjust. Maybe on the third month, they will adjust, and then now it go back to the to be the exact amount that you deserve to get payment. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, within 24th month, you will basically get exactly the amount that being agreed in the contract document. Okay. Now, what else? Subcontracting the work. Okay. Subcontracting the work is good for contractor because once you subcontract the work, meaning to say, you can pay the subcontractor a little bit late as what the client did for the contractor. You can do the same as to the subcontractor, because now you are the client to the subcontractor. If, for instance, the client pay you 1 or 2 months late, then you can do the same thing. Okay, but bear in mind that when you pay people late, then there is no motivation. People might slow down the work. At the end of the day, it might not good for the project. Okay, uh, the good management, basically you pay people on time, but you need to have money. That is the issue. But let's say if you do not have that much money, you can do the same thing. When you delay the payment, meaning to say your cash out graph will be lower. You see, will be lower down, because you do not have to pay the subcontractor immediately. Meaning to say you have extra money in your bank account. That is the concept. It is not to say that this is going to prolong for a long time, but just a matter of during that particular time, since you do not have to pay to others yet, so basically you have sufficient cash to roll. That is the intention. And lastly, advance payment. Advance payment is the concept being used in the government sector. In the private sector, they don't even bother. If you want to get our project, you yourself have to have some kind of capital. Otherwise, don't take the project. As simple as that. But the government, because of the social responsibility, because of there are so many things have to take care of, whatever, government have come up with many ways in order to help the contractors. Okay, because when government help the contractor, it basically creating jobs. That is the intention actually. So advance payment, let's take a look at this graph. For instance, when do advance payment being given? Advance payment meaning to say it is similar like when you receive your PTPTN. When you want to enter university, then the PTPTN will offer you advance. If you want to take or agree, then later on you will sign a contract. Then that advance payment will be released at the beginning of when you enter the university, maybe about 1,000 or 1,500. But then it will be deducted from the remaining balance. So similarly, the advance payment could be equivalent to around maybe around 10%. 10% of value of the contract value, but limit to maximum amount. So it is not simply you just time 10% out of 100 million. That is too much. But this advance payment is just to give a contractor as a working capital. Okay, to give a working capital so that contractor can start the job without having to take loan from other places. So then, but remember, it limit to maximum amount. Maximum amount will be specified in the contract document. And normally the good thing is that this amount will be paid to the contractor at the beginning of the project. So meaning to say, contractor at the beginning of the project will already get the advance payment. So there is a money already in the contractor account. So when you already have the money, even though the first month you might not get the payment yet, the second month you might not get the payment, and then suddenly on the third month you get some kind of payment, you notice that the graph will be like this. Okay, the graph will be like that, and you see the gap is going to reduce. And in some situation, if the amount is a lot more, you notice how we draw the graph. So meaning to say, there is possibility that contractor is should not having any financial issue at all. But the reality is that sometimes this contractor, when they receive advance payment, they thought that the money belonged to them already. Whereas the money basically belong to the project. In any business, the issue is that sometimes the contractor use the profit generated monthly from the project as if the money belong to them. That is basically a wrong concept. Contractor basically should use the money equivalent to their salary, as if they are working in that project. So they earn, maybe in a month they earn about 10,000. That is the amount of money that they should spend on themselves. The rest basically belong to the project. So once the project is running, you basically cannot touch the money. That is a good accounting system. But there are a lot of people who do not understand how to the financial system of a project. They thought that once they generate the money profit in that particular month, then they can spend on fancy car, big house, and then go for vacation and whatnot. At the end of the day, they realize that something happened, then there is short of cash. That is the issue. Okay, that could be factors that influence the project cash flow, whether it is good for the contractor advantage or disadvantages. Okay, based on this graph, you perhaps you can have some kind of ideas which factor will influence either the cash in graph or the cash out graph. The idea is that how to reduce this gap. This gap is not good actually. It indicates that the contractor is running short of money. Okay, now we want to go into the calculation. Okay, calculation. There is a long calculation here. I do not want to go into this calculation yet, example yet. I want to go into this example. Okay, this example is in Malay. Okay, but now I already translated that in English. Okay, this was an exam question long time ago, but now all the exam question is based on objective, as you have seen in the assignment. Okay, the assignment number 3 that you have to do. Okay, now example. Let's say the planning of box culvert construction is shown on a timetable below. Here, timetable meaning to say this is the list of activities, still in Malay. Never mind, I will translate that into English. Let's say this is a list of this is excavation, this is piling work, this is stump, this is the box culvert wall, this is the box culvert cover or roof, this is backfilling, and this is the cleaning up. Clean up. Okay, that these the activities, and this is the value, and this is the cost. Remember, if you want to solve any cash flow question, you need to identify what could be the value of each activity and the cost of each activity. So value and cost must be identified. And the issue is that in exam question, But now we don't have the final exam, so lucky for you. But you do have the assignment, which is based on final exam. Most of the time, we do give what we call either value or profit. Value or profit, or cost, cost and profit. It's not all, cost and profit. So again, based on the formula value equivalent to cost plus profit, you can always calculate cost and value by, if we just simply give value and profit, so you can get the cost. Cost should be less than value. Cost should be less than value because cost plus value equivalent to profit. Okay, but now in this example, the value and the cost is already given. So that's make our job much easier. Then, okay, cost and value is given. The timing, okay, the timing in terms of start, finish, date, date is also given. Date is given. Why? Because remember, when you want to do cash flow, you need to construct bar chart. How are you going to construct the bar chart if you do not have the timing in terms of the start date of activity and the finish date of activity? So that's why in this example, the date is already given. Start May and then end May. This is what we call May in Malay. This is July. This is August, September, October, November, and at the end of November, our project. And you notice that between value and cost, I mentioned to you, value should be more than cost because the differences is basically the profit. But in our activity, you notice that this one is okay, value is more than cost. But this one, the second one is okay. The third one is also okay. But here, you notice what happened? The cost is much more than the value. So meaning to say, this activity, contractor is not making any profit. In fact, the contractor is at a loss by 5,000. Okay. Similarly, this one is also contractor is not making any profit. This one is okay and this one is okay. So you notice that not all construction activity similar to what if you are selling product at the Eon there, supermarket, not every product is basically making equal profit. There are some product basically you are selling at a loss. But you must have those things because that when people go to supermarket, people would like to see everything is there. Some people might be buying those things, whereas some people might not need those things. But that is the concept of supermarket where everything is there. Similarly, when you do construction activities, please expect some of the activity is running at loss. But when you take the overall value, when you add all the value here and then compare with the cost, for sure the value should be much higher than the cost. That differences is what we call profit. Okay. All right. Then, so you are given responsibility to forecast project cash flow requirement before even the project start. The contractor mentioned, this is very important, the payment will be released 2 months after each claim at the end of the month. 2 months. 2 months meaning to say, let's say the beginning of the month, first month, you complete the work, then you submit claim. Only after 2 months from the date you claim, the payment will be released by the client. So the question is that in what particular month you will start to get the first payment? That is very important. If you put the payment received wrongly in a wrong month, meaning to say the whole calculation is now wrong. Okay, so the calculation asks, calculate the maximum cash required for this project. So for cash flow requirement, as in your assignment number 3, please, you can do in the Excel format where you can basically calculate very fast and then attach the file in your Word or even in a separate file, okay? And label that as we show you in this example. Okay, now, okay, this is the table based on the question. Now, next, this is the one that you need to construct, the Gantt chart, okay? So the list of activity, you list down all the activity, and then this is the value, this is the cost, value and cost. It's already given in the question, okay? If it is not given, then you are the one that should come up with this thing, as in the next example. Then you construct the bar chart based on the given information. For instance, the excavation will start on the 1st May until the 31st May. See? Start on the 1st May until 31st May. So the bar chart indicate the length of the activity. And you do that until the end of all the activity here. This activity. Okay, this name of activity. Then you will start doing, you start putting row to calculate what we call monthly value. This is monthly value. Okay, monthly value. And how you do that? Okay, based on every month, May, you notice what could be the activity needed. It looks like this activity for that particular May. So if you want to calculate value, please use the value column. This is 17K. And how about the second activity? Second activity, if you notice, it looks like it is 1/4. The length of the bar chart looks like 1/4 of 80 here. This one is 1/4 of 80. So if you add 17 here, 17 plus 1/4 of 80, that will be equivalent to 37. Okay, that will be for the first month of May. Then June. June, only this activity. This activity, it looks like you can assume 2/4 because the length of the bar of 80 equivalent to 40. So July, this portion plus this portion. This portion is like 2/3 of 60 and 1/4 of 80. 2/3 of 60, then you get 60 in total. And you do that for the rest of activity. You split according to the value. The value you spread evenly. That is the assumption for easy calculation. Then you notice that if you add all these things together, it will end up to be 332. And if you add up all the value together from the list of activity, it should be the same amount. That's how you check. Actually, you are doing nothing. You just simply spread them according to the month. Okay, because the cash flow has something to do with the monthly distribution of the cost and value. Then that will be the monthly value, and now is basically The next one is the monthly THLLY, monthly cost. Now this is monthly cost. So for monthly cost, you repeat the same process, but please use the cost value. Instead of value, now we use the cost amount. So I would say instead of the first May is instead of 70, you put 15. This one is 70. So you will get this one is 15, 70. You should get 32.5. Okay, the rest of the thing are similar, but except that which value do you want to use, either value or cost. Okay, so when you add all these costs together to check, it will end up to be 370 and 307, which is the same amount as if you add up all the costs. And you notice one thing from our formula, value equal to cost plus P. Value now is 332. Cost now is 307. What is the P? P is unknown in this situation. If the question asks you to calculate the P, then you know P equivalent to 332 minus 307 equivalent to 25K. That is the profit. But if the question asks you about the profit margin, margin is being defined in terms of percentage, not in terms of amount. Then how are you going to calculate the percentage? You already know the amount is 25,000, but which one are you going to divide with? Certain people might divide 25 with 332. You will get some percentage. Whereas certain people might divide 25 divided by 307. Then also you will get some kind of percentage. Which one is correct? Actually, both is correct in terms of perspective. Normally, the way contractor calculate is based on the cost. So if you calculate based on the cost, then the profit you divide with the cost, then you will get that kind of margin. But then if the client basically, if the client know the profit in terms of the cost plus type of contract, then if he or she divide that thing with the value, then the percentage is basically based on value. Okay, so don't worry about those things, because in our exam question, we do have we simply define the profit either according to value or cost, so that you can basically uh, start calculating and get the same the exact values. Okay, next step. Okay, next step is to continue with the table that you construct here. You continue. If you have a big piece of paper, you just simply continue. Okay, because what we basically do is basically we just divide with the column and row. Column and row. Okay, this is what we call column, May, June until the end of the project. The end of the project is only November. This is what we call PC, practical completion. So why do we have extra month there? Because the calculation of the what we call the accounting system will not stop immediately when you stop the project. It will basically encroach into a few months. Okay, that is the system of accounting. Okay, this is what we call monthly value. Monthly value. How do you get this thing? From your previous calculation, monthly value. You just simply copy back all the value there from the beginning of the project until the end. And then this one is cumulative. Cumulative value. Cumulative value, you see, you just simply put at the end of the month. 37 at the end of May, and then how about June? 37, you plus with this one, then you get 77. And then at the end of July, 77, you plus with this one, then you get 137. That is, you see, at the end of the project, this is what we call value. Value equivalent to 332. Okay, you just first you do in term of monthly, and then you do in term of cumulative. So you notice that sometimes the exam question, basically this is the answer to the exam question, either this one or this one. That is a bonus. You don't have to do this table in order to answer the first question from the exam exercise, because this is just a bonus. Okay, but we just show you in terms of the table so that you know that all the value from the exam question is basically generated, or you can see from this table. Okay, that will be the second row, the third row, and I'm telling you, the numbering of the row or the sequence of the row is not fixed. It is up to you to mix and match or to put whatever row first. Okay, but in my situation, the first three row, I put everything related to value. Then only the fourth, the fourth and the fifth row, I put everything related to cost. But there is no rule which one shall you put first, or you can mix and match. But the most important thing, at the end of the calculation, you want to deduct which row with what row. You must know which one to deduct. Otherwise, you will get confused. Okay. Then the third row is basically cumulative payment. Cumulative payment meaning to say payment made or payment received. Okay, the first payment is 0. Why? Because you just start doing your work. Only then you submit your claim. See, you submit claim here, submit claim, and you notice from the question, see, the contract mentioned the payment will be released 2 months. What does 2 months mean? Okay, 2 months mean this is the first month, and then second month. Only you will receive payment. So the period from the submission of the claim until you receive the payment is 2 months. So only in the third month or July, then you will get the payment. You notice that 37 is, where do you get this 37? You just simply copy the value. Copy and put into this table. So that's why I mentioned to you, the projected cash flow is very easy because you do this thing at the beginning of the project. Even the project has not started yet. So you just simply base calculation on the projected income and payment. You assume that you are going to get that kind of amount. In reality, it might not uh, be that amount, but never mind. You can adjust those things later. So you notice everything is just copy and paste into the right row and column. See? And this one. Okay, now you already completed on the third row. Now we go for the fourth row. Fourth row is now we start putting the cost. The cost is very easy. Whatever the cost that you calculate from this monthly cost, you just simply copy back here, the first month, second month, and whatnot. And then you make this one as a cumulative, 32.5 plus this one becomes 67.5. Then you plus with this one, become 121. Then you plus with this one. At the end of the day, you notice you just simply copy, you see, 307, 307, 307. So that's why you notice from the graph basically looks flat. This flat indicate the same amount as we mentioned here. Because it is the cumulative, the accounting system will be going on even a few months, then only you close the account. But the project is only until November. Okay, so now we come into the sixth row. Sixth row, which is not, I would say this is optional. Optional. Or in order not to make you confused, you can even delete the sixth row. But if you read books, the issue is that our students nowadays don't read books anymore. They just simply read Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you read books, then basically you will notice certain books do have this row number 6, what we call cash flow. The cash flow, to calculate cash flow is very easy. You take the third row. Third row is basically cumulative payment received. You minus with the expenses, then you will get this amount. And you notice at the end of the project, plus 25. Plus 25, this is the profit that you will make. So meaning to say, from the beginning of the project, you are not going to make any money. Only at the end, you can see your profit. Why? Simply because this issue. The first payment you receive very late, only the third month. That is one of the factor because the delay in the initial payment. Okay, lastly, row number 7. This is the most important row. This is what we have been talking about. This is what the example or the answer that we are looking. Okay, cash required. Cash required. What does cash require definition is all about? Is the money out or the cash out. Cash out meaning to say from your pocket money, you need to pay contractor, manpower, machinery, minus with the money that you receive. So in order to do this, you take the row number 5 minus row number 3. And remember, in the cash flow calculation, the final answer that you take the value must be cumulative. You cannot subtract something which is on the monthly basis with the cumulative value. No, no, no. You cannot do that. Everything must be taken from the cumulative, either cumulative cost and cumulative payment. Then only it become accurate subtraction. You cannot subtract monthly with the cumulative. Okay, now how do we get 32.5? Okay, now let me remember. We want to know the cash out first. Where is the cash out? Okay, the cash out is here. 32.5. Okay, that is the cash out. 32.5 minus, this is the on the May minus the cash in the cash in, meaning to say April, or even before you even start the project. Let's assume April. April, you do not have any money received from the client. That will be 0. That's why 32.5 minus 0 equivalent to 32.5. So in order to do this, let me erase this thing. Okay. You only have to focus on, this is 0, 0. You only have to focus on this column. Okay, this column, and then this column to get the this row. To get row number 7, you only have to focus on row number 5 and row number 3. Okay, row number 3 is cost. So you take this cost, 32.5. Then you go to the cash in column, but you do not subtract with this 0 on the same month. You subtract as if in the previous month. In the previous month, which is also equivalent to 0. 0 here. So you subtract with this one. Then only you will get this value. Now let's take another example. On June, the cost is 67.5. You do not subtract with this one, but you subtract with this one. Then you get 67.5. How about 1-to-1? 1-to-1, you do not subtract with 37, you subtract with the previous one. Then only you get 121. Why? Because the issue is that in this example, you are not getting any money in the first 3 months. Only at the end of third month only you getting money. Then on August 177, you subtract with this one, 37. Then you get 140, 40.5. Then 247, you subtract with this one. Then you get this value. 291, you subtract with this one. Previous month, remember? Then only you get this value. So when you do this, you will notice one thing. Among that value, there will be one value which is the biggest. That is what we call maximum cash required for this project, which is equivalent to 172. And when does this thing happen? It happened at the end of September. All our calculation is based on at the end of every month. So if, for instance, in order to illustrate further, if you take the value from row number 5 and row number 3 and you plot that thing on the graph, so this is what we call cash out from row number 5. You plot the graph, you will get this thing, okay, the nice S curve. But then this one is what we call cash out from row number 3. When you plot the graph, you are going to get a step graph, because the money we receive only at the end of each month. And you notice that the first month, basically, we don't get any money. Second month also, only at the end of the third month. So that's why the graph is like this. Okay, like this. And the amount of that we are looking at, for instance, in September. So what happened is that the cash required equivalent to a cash out in the month of September 9 minus cash in the month of August. Then only you get 172K. That would be the biggest gap. If you draw this thing according to scale, then basically you can know this is the bigger gap. We do not deduct this value with this value. No, that is wrong. Certain book do take that thing into account, but the issue is that we want to know the maximum cash required. That is the biggest impact basically pressing the contractor cash flow. So we should take that kind of consideration using this formula. Cash required for the month of September, 9 months, should be cashed out in that particular month, September, minus the cash in or the money that contractor received or have in the previous month. Then only you get the right answer. Okay, so you can do that thing in the exam question. Okay, this is just example. Why? This example, sometimes we do give a PDM diagram. PDM diagram. The most important thing is you need to come up with the bar chart. You don't have to draw this PDM diagram. If you know how to read the information given, you just simply draw the bar chart. But make sure that you draw it accurately. Otherwise, all your calculation is basically wrong. You are not going to get the answer. Okay, now I just give you one example. We do have a few examples here in our slide here. You are very lucky because the previous student don't get this kind of information. Now everything is given. Okay, you just by looking example, except that our example, I think in this slide we only give you example based on value. Okay, when you read the example, you need to read the example value of works. See, value of work. Next example, see, value of work and then value. Look at the table, value. And next example is also value. Wrong spelling there. See, because it is value. There could be a question in exam question that refer to cost. So don't get confused. When they are given a cost, then you need to calculate based on the cost. Okay, using the formula of what? V equivalent to C plus P. Always remember that simple formula, but it play a lot of important part whether you get the right answer or not. Okay, now the value is of work is given. The gross profit is 10% of value. You see, in order to make things easier, so the profit is given either based on value or based on cost, because otherwise you will get confused. Retention of money, retention fund is 5%. So certain percentage of money have to be deducted. Progress payment is on monthly basis. Measurement will be made at the end of each month and contractor receive the payment 1 month. So meaning to say, you do the work 1 month and then submit claim, and then at the end of 1 month or within 1 month, then you will receive the payment. So in this situation, it's good for contractor. There is no delay in payment. Contractor is given advance payment 700,000, but this advance payment have to be returned back to the client by deducting from the end of 4th month until 10 month. 4th month until the end of 10 month, meaning to say in 7 months. So meaning to say every month 100,000 will be deducted from the contractor claims in order to pay back to the client, because the advance payment is just the loan. Okay, it is just the loan uh, or advance money given to the contractor to help contractor to kickstart the project. But then it belongs to the client. It is a client money, so the client will be deducted from the subsequent payment later on. So this is the example of subsequent payment. Retention fund, remember the 5% will be returned back here, will be repaid, returned back 3 months after the practical completion, PC, meaning to say after the project completed. If you read this statement here and you notice that in our example, normally the maximum amount will happen during the contract period or within the project duration. It will not encroach into after the project already completed. So meaning to say, you simply can ignore the repayment here. It will not affect the answer. But this one will affect the answer. You need to take into account. But this one is you don't have, because only after 3 months then the money will be returned to the contractor. So to simplify the calculation, you may assume the cost must be met at instant they are incurred. You may also assume the monthly value and cost each activity equally distributed. You see, that is how you read the information given. And now we are going to start. Okay, the activity is given, duration is given based on month, week, or whatever. Predecessor. Okay, why predecessor? Because you need to construct the bar chart. So that's why in our class, I already mentioned, at the end of the class, you should be able to construct the bar chart, AOA diagram, or PDM diagram, because they are interrelated. Okay, but now we want to use the bar chart for the sake of cash flow forecasting. Now, the value of the work is given for each activity is given there, but the cost is not given. So value equivalent to cost plus P. But the profit is given, value is given, then you can calculate the cost. Because in order to do the calculation, you must know the value and then basically the cost. Okay, now question. The first question. If the question is the information given value, normally the first question would ask about the cost. How do you know the cost? Well, you know what? Without doing any calculation, based on the value here, if you add all this value, so you already have this one. How about the cost? Well, you know the profit is basically based on that value. 10% of the profit, you just simply deduct. When you deduct value with the profit, then you get the cost. Why? Because we already mentioned the cost should be less than the value. Okay, so this is just simply a bonus question. You should simply get this the answer as quickly without doing anything. Okay, then the most difficult thing is this one. Calculate the maximum cash required, which basically you need to start first step first. Construct Gantt chart. Gantt chart or bar chart, you need to construct. Why you need to construct? Because you want to distribute the duration according to whatever the duration given, and then each of the month you want to get the monthly, basically this I would say this is monthly value, because the only value is given for the time being, but you can calculate the cost. Okay, that is the basis. Next, you can start by constructing the row and bar. Okay, row and bar. So first column and row. So the advance payment is 700, profit 10%, retention is 5%. So you just simply put that thing as a note. Then the project will be running from January until October. Okay, until October. Value for each work, 400,000, 1,000 is based on this one. See, you already calculate. You already distribute. Why? You already know this thing. This is how we get this amount based on this value. Okay. So first thing first, we establish the monthly value. Then cumulative value. Cumulative value, simple. You you add the first month plus with the second month, then you get this amount. So you add this one, you get this amount. You add this one, and you know what? You will get this amount. 12.9 million, which is equivalent to this one. If you add this one, you get 12,900. So this is the amount that you will get. So without doing anything, you already have the amount. And if you notice, the profit is 10%. If you less the profit 10% from this amount, you will get this amount. So this is the first question being asked. See, this is actually 12,900. You you time with you time with 0.9%, 0.9. Actually, you will get this amount, because that is the amount that you will deduct actually. Okay, next, profit. We just simply put profit 10% each to show you step by step. You don't have to do this, but if you show step by step, then perhaps you can understand. So 10% profit from the value. This is value, which is equivalent to 40,000. 10% of this one, this value, equivalent to 120. Okay, so now let's take a look one by one. So 40% is basically 10% of this one. So 10% of this one, you will get this one. So you get the profit already. Then cost. Based on this formula, V equivalent to C plus P. If you do in Excel, you can do formula. So cost is basically value minus profit. So 400,000 minus 40,000, you get 360. So you can do that, and basically you already know by now each of the costs based on month. This is the cost until the end. Then what you need to do is basically make this cost as cumulative. Make this cost as cumulative. Just simply add first month plus second month, then you get all this value. And at the end of the day, you will have this value. If you don't believe me, uh, you can add 10 more percent from the cost. You will get the same amount of the value. And that is the equation. Okay, next column, monthly claim. Okay, monthly claim, 400,000. Why? Because it is the same as the value here. So whatever it is, we just simply copy back. But then remember, the payment that we are going to receive is going to be deducted by retention money. So retention money, I would say, is a negative. It's a negative value that you need to deduct. Okay, you need to deduct 5% each from the value. 5% of monthly claim, which is negative 200. It is as if negative because you need to deduct those things. Okay. Then advance payment. Advance payment is a positive because it is the extra money that will go into your account. Okay. So you just jot down those things first, but then it needs to be deducted. This is the negative, as if it is negative. Okay, now cumulative retention. Okay, previously we just calculate the retention is like this. Then cumulatively, 20,000 plus 60. Why you need to calculate cumulatively? Because remember, this is the amount that will be given back to the contractor after the completion of the project, the 3-month completion of the project. If you don't believe me, you just simply 5% of the value here, you just time with 5%, this is the amount that you will get. Okay, it is the same amount, but now we are distributing those things in a monthly basis. Why? Because we want to get into the net payment. What is the net payment that you as a contractor will receive from the client? Okay, now we go into the next to what we call next row here, monthly receive. Okay, 700,000. Why? Where does this thing 700,000 come from? Actually, it is coming from here, advance payment here, because at the first month, you do not have any money except the first advance payment from the client will go into your account. So please put that thing into the accounting value here. Otherwise, you will get confused. Then in the second month, February, in the second month, 380. Where does 380 coming from? Okay, now I erase all these things. We focus on the value. Where is that monthly claim? Okay, monthly claim is 400,000. But then remember, you need to deduct with this thing what we call retention money, because the client will keep the 20,000 into the client account first. What left is basically 380. So after you deduct those things, 400,000 deduct with 20,000, then you will get this amount. Whereas the first amount is from here. Then the third amount on March, 1,200,000, you deduct with this one, this amount, you will get this amount. Okay. So you do that, the rest, because everything basically is based on a similar concept. 800,000 you deduct with this one, then you will get 660. You do that until the end of the calculation there. Never mind about you encroach into different month. You just complete the whole number of amount that you get, okay, into this table. Then you make it cumulative. Okay, you make it cumulative. Wait a second. You make it cumulative. We're almost at the end of the slide here. All right, then, sorry. Okay, now you make them cumulative, 700,000 first month. Then second month, you add with 380, you get this amount. And until the end of the calculation there. Okay, now the last cash required. Okay, cash required. What you need to do is basically take the right row. Okay, the right row. But remember, when you add these the net amount in a monthly receive, you need to consider the advance payment, the deduction as well. Otherwise, you will not get that amount. Okay. All right. So let's focus on this amount. How do you get this amount? Okay, we are going to focus on cumulative monthly receive. I will draw this row. Okay. And then there is another row, cumulative cost, the yellow color. Okay, this one. Okay. So what happened is that in order to get this amount, cash require equivalent to let's say cash in January minus, sorry, cash out minus cash in, minus cash in the previous month. Previous month meaning to say December or even beginning of the month. Even we don't even start a project yet, as if. So what happened is that, what is the cash out? Cash out is equivalent to 360. 360 minus, what is the cash in? Cash in is basically 700 because we receive advance payment, then basically the contractor have extra money there, 700. And you notice that there is negative 340. What does this negative mean? This negative is now considered as excess money that contractor have. Cash required meaning to say contractor need money. Contractor don't have money and contractor is trying to do some kind of forecasting how much money that he need to be assisted. But now, since he already have the advance payment at the beginning of the project, so he basically is very happy. So at the beginning of the project, he has extra money. But what happened in the second month, February? Okay, February, what happened is that we focus on this one. The cash out is 1,440, 1.4 million. Then what kind of figure that you have to deduct? You have to deduct with the cash in. Cash in the previous month, not the February. Okay, you notice I cannot deduct with this figure. I have to deduct with 700. Then only I get this figure. So if I can draw this figure here, you see, I deduct with the previous one, deduct with this one. Then only I get this amount. Because of this equation, the cash required mean cash out that particular month, you deduct with the cash in or the money that you have from the previous month. If, for instance, you do not have any advance payment, then basically the money that you have is basically zero. Then you will see that the first month is already positive. Positive means you are running short of cash. You require cash. So if you do that, then you notice among the answer that you will notice, there will be one which is the biggest or the maximum value. The value happened in August. So this is what we call the answer. See, the maximum cash happened in the month of August. That will be the, see, another bonus. But if you get the calculation right, and this is the amount. Okay. And lastly, question 29. Question 29, there are a lot of people who do not get the answer right. Okay. Simply because they took the value from, they didn't know where to get the value. Is it from which row? Well, I'm telling you, what is the expected monthly payment received? That is the keyword, monthly. It is not the cumulative. No, no cumulative. The previous cash required is from the cumulative. What we call row. Cumulative. Everything is the keyword is the cumulative. But now is monthly. In the month of September 9. Okay, if you go back to this table, the cumulative, the monthly receive. Okay, now the monthly receive is basically this this row. The row that I just highlight here, this is what we call monthly receive. But the question asks you for September. September meaning to say, you notice, 380 is the first month. September is the 9th month. So the first month payment based on the first month work, because the first month work is January, but you didn't get any payment. So the first payment is 380, you will get on December. This is the first month. You can count the first month, second month here, third month, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You see, this is the 9th month, which is happening on October. Because why? You receive payment 1 month late. Because the concept of claim, you only claim at the beginning of the month, then you will receive payment 1 month after that. So this is why you get this answer. This is the right answer. At the you will on the first month, but you notice in the table it happened on October. Why? Because you notice that in construction, when you do work on the first month, there will be no payment. Only payment will be done in a subsequent month, as being mentioned in the question. You notice here, 1 month later. Okay, so if first thing first, you must focus on the monthly payment row, not the cumulative, but then you focus on which month. Okay, which month the payment is asking you. If it is 1 month delay, then whatever the work that you do in the 9th month will be paid in the subsequent month. Okay, so that's how you get the answer. In your assignment, I want you to to submit or to attach similar table, because from this table, this one, you need to submit this one, and then you need to submit this table and label them with the coloring and whatnot, bold, or automatically we know that this is the answer, because the answer is from this table alone. It will answer all the question asking. I also give you a few more examples, similar example, but all the example is asking the same question. Total cost, maximum cash, which month, and then monthly progress payment in August. So you do the same kind of exercise again and again, because that is the concept. It will not run very far off from whatever it is, the concept. Okay, so take a look at the slide. You can read on your own, and perhaps if you already working on assignment number 3 on the cash flow, by looking at this one, you can basically do the calculation using the same concept, except that in my slide I do not show based on the cost, but the same calculation. If cost is given, then the first row will be the cost. Then you try to find the what we call the values. All right. Okay. So that is, I will stop the share and then stop recording.